So Claire's point, it's a really obvious one, but let's give a background just for a minute. I don't want to try and be too intellectual about it, but let's look at the background to why Buddha would even tell us that things are impermanent. And that obviously, so then Claire's simple point, you know, as exactly what she said, when she said uncertainty, and then I said, oh, that things, she said, yes, that things change and become what we don't want. That's the point, isn't it, Claire? I mean, if things change for the better, you're not going to ask about it, are you? That's a really interesting point, isn't it? So we've got to look, in other words, what we ought to look at. The question is, how do we deal with uncertainty? Well, what I'm going to do, and what I do all the time, is let's look at what it is in our mind that makes a mistake. And in this case, what is it in our mind that makes us assume that things shouldn't change, Claire? Are you seeing my point? It's fine to talk about how do you deal with change, but I think we've got to look at the basic point, and that's where Buddha's coming from. Basically, one way of presenting all of Buddha's teachings is in terms of his presenting what he has found to be how things are. And this is his very first point. He says, guess what, folks? I have observed, and this is what about time you better start observing it, is that everything in its nature, being the product of cause and effect, changes moment by moment. So then he is, by telling us this is how things are, then immediately what we should do is question, well, if this is natural, why do I get, what makes me fear it? What makes me unhappy? Why do I get upset when things change for the worse? And that's the thing we have to look at. So that's another assumption. So first of all, we do get upset when things change for the worse. We do not get upset when things change for the better. In other words, if suddenly your bank account empties out, we're going to get shocked. But if our bank account doubles, we'll get shocked, but we'll be very happy. And we won't say, why do things change? We won't care. So, do you see my point, Claire? It's a really powerful point. So what underpins, and every time it's like the same discussion, what in our mind the Buddha's saying is underpinning this response to when bad things happen, when things change, and we don't expect it. That's the point. I mean, if we kind of know, but we already know, like say you go to the doctor and he says you've got cancer and you'll be dead in 6 months, you get some warning, you know, but then still look at the shock. Look at the shock we get. So we think, oh my God, I'm suffering because of all the drama in the world. We think, oh my God, I'm suffering because I've got cancer. But no, the Buddha says, no, it's more subtle than that. We are suffering because we have an assumption that things shouldn't change. This is the interesting point. And this is where we really start to dig deep into our minds to really get to the root of the problem. It's fine to deal with how things happen how to deal with how things change. But the real answer to it, Claire, is by observing why are we surprised that things change. So we've got to learn to stop being surprised. I mean, that's the real answer.